And here we are again, Hornets. This time we're going to keep going with our part three, our guided practice. We already did our setup on the page. So now we're going to jump right into the story. Just a quick reminder that we are looking at who are the characters, what is the dialogue, and where is the setting. Now, we are reading historical fiction, so because it's historical, there's going to be some truth to it. So, according to our close reading, it wants us to underline facts and it wants us to star any story elements clearly fictional. So, to help with that, we're going to make sure that we circle our characters and we want to make sure we take notice of any dialogue, because if it's dialogue, there is no primary. It's not unless it's from a primary source. We have no clue if it's actually true or not. So we want to be careful. So make sure you follow along as I'm reading, and here we go. Like, oops, you know what I forgot to do? Anybody tell me? That's right, I forgot to number the paragraphs. So let's see if we can do that. All right, and we're going to number our paragraphs. We've got paragraph 1, 2, and 3. Okay. All right, so as I'm reading this, make sure you circle your characters. We want to try to underline. Normally we underline our setting, but for this, it wants us to underline facts that are similar to the historical account we read yesterday, and we want to try to star anything we know is fiction, okay? And then we're going to go back and add it to our chart on page 210. So here we are, Sighting the Pacific by J.C. Wright. As the weary explorers reached the top of the hill, Mr. Lewis let out a cry of delight. "We made it!" he exclaimed. "The Pacific!" The men exchanged doubtful glances. Just last week, Mr. Clark had rejoiced along with the entire team, confident that the large body of water before them was the ocean. Later, they discovered that the body of water was just the estuary of the Columbia River, yet they smelled ocean air. Peter had tried to stay positive as they continued their search, but it was extremely difficult. Would today, November 15th, actually be the day they reached the Pacific Ocean? "That's certainly a sight for sore eyes," one of the men exclaimed, and Peter looked up and grinned. After a year and a half of traveling, they had, in fact, come upon the salt waters of the Pacific. Now, what characters did you find in our story? Good job. Mr. Lewis is somebody we want to circle. We also have, we have another character. We have Peter. And then we have one of the men. I don't know which one of the men, but I know one of them. So there is another person in their party. So those are our characters. And I'm going to go ahead and circle some dialogue or a star. I like that better. We'll put a star by our dialogue right here and right here, because I'm not sure that Lewis actually said that. So unless I have a primary source that tells me exactly what he said, I'm not 100% sure about that one. Also, I'm going to come and put a star by what the one man said, because once again, I don't know who that man is, and I'm not sure who he is or what he could have said. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be a story element thing along with the man himself, since I don't know who he is. Also, the fact that Peter looked up and grinned, and what he says about after a year of traveling, I'm sure they were all tired, but that seems like a really good storytelling to let me know how my characters are feeling. Another thing that I'm going to also is that right here that they smelled ocean air. That is one of those things it's actually that he tried to stay positive. So Peter tried to stay positive. That's a good element to let me know something about my character, not necessarily part of the story. I'm part of the original history. Now, when it comes to the original history, we do know where things we're going to underline that Mr. Lewis is our actual famous historical figure. So hopefully you underlined him. And then also, hopefully you underlined the fact that, if you remember from yesterday, we know that they made a mistake on November 7th and came across the water of the mouth of the Columbia River. So another thing that we also know on the day, we know the day from the actual historical account of November 15th, that is that's the day they actually did reach the Pacific Ocean. So we want to make sure we underline that entire sentence too. All right. And then the last thing is that they did find it. We want to make sure we've underlined that as well. Okay. So those things are letting us know the stars, guys, that is all fiction. We have no clue if those star things really happened, but we also can look at the things that we've underlined as part of our actual story. Okay. So we're going to move on to our next slide. And I'm going to erase all that. Maybe. I'm going to erase all that. There we go. And on our next slide, we're going to finish filling in our box. And our box told us, and we're looking for things that we want to add for our fictional details. Well, we just starred all of our fictional details that we want to make sure we add. Okay. So this is what we're looking at. Anything that had to do with Peter's thoughts and feelings is fictional because Peter's a fictional character. And then the other man speaks. Well, we don't know who the other man is. He's a fictional character. The words spoken by Lewis and the man, because dialogue is inherently fictional and it's engaging, trying to make something that you're reading more entertaining, unless you've actually got a direct quote from Lewis's journal. And then the fact that the men were sharing doubtful gazes, I'm also going to add to that because that develops some more stuff with characterization because they didn't believe Lewis. While that is a really good assumption or a good inference, it's still not factual, right? So with that, we have finished reading and finished our page 210. So with that, this part of the video is complete. And you can move on and watch the next video where we look at actually answering our multiple choice question.